it's a Sanskrit name, so it means freedom and liberation, and in Hindu it means rebirth.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And so it was a strong name, but I felt like it was relevant to me. When I was in utero, I found out that my father had really beaten mum up, and I pretty much feel like I came out with my dukes up. I do remember him being physically violent with me as well, beating me up. That set the stage for me not to have a healthy relationship with men. He died a long time ago and I didn't really ever make peace with him. But I also realised that you don't sometimes get closure and you have to be okay with that as well.
She's the force behind one of Australia's most trusted organic skincare brands. A pioneer of green beauty and author of Truth in Beauty. But the story behind Mukti Organics is anything but surface deep. In this powerfully honest episode of Beautiful Inside by Beauty Kate, Mukti opens up like never before. From surviving childhood trauma and emotional abuse to finding healing in a permaculture commune, raising her daughters alone and rebuilding her business from the ground up. In this unfiltered conversation with Sigourney, she reveals the truth behind the brand and the woman she had to become to build it.
Welcome to Beautiful Inside. I'm Sigourney Cantelo. For over 20 years as a magazine beauty and health director and founder of Beauty Kate, I've shared stories about how to be beautiful on the outside. But recently, I've also been on my own journey to uncover what it means to be beautiful within. Inspired by my own experiences with mental health and healing, I'm meeting people who have remarkable stories to share. How have they come back from the brink of adversity and reclaimed their power? How do they continue to nurture their inner selves while creating space for joy, beauty, and well-being? Now, before we dive in, I have a small favour to ask you. You have no idea what a difference it makes. Yep, you guessed it. Please hit subscribe or follow. This small gesture means that we'll have greater reach, better scope for guests, and more resources to make this show the very best that it can be. And feel free to comment on YouTube and tell me what you want to see more of. And together we can keep these important conversations going and continue to explore the link between inner and outer beauty. Now, this season 5 of Beautiful Inside is brought to you by Blue Haven Pools. Now, pools have become much more than just a place to cool off. They're now wellness spaces in their own right. A moment in nature, magnesium mineral water for your skin, even a cold plunge in winter. We chose Blue Haven for our recent pool build because they've had over 50 years of experience building beautiful pools. We went with a custom concrete pool because they can be as creative as your Pinterest board. And if you're on a standard block, they've made it unbelievably easy. You can now literally buy a designer concrete pool online. Still owned by the founding family, CEO Ramonda brings both heart and intuitive design to every build. And a big thank you to Blue Haven for sponsoring this season. Stay tuned for our pool diaries at the end of this episode, where I take you behind the scenes of our build with Blue Haven. I'll also put some details in the show notes. Beautiful Inside acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land that this podcast is recorded on, and we pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. All right, I'm here with the wonderful Mukti, founder of Mukti Organics. Wow, thank you for having me in your beautiful space. We've known each other quite a long time, haven't we?
We have. We go back a few years.
We do. And I was really keen to talk to you because, you know, being such an advocate for clean beauty and, you know, a strong woman in the beauty industry, I know a little bit about your story. Yeah, I was really intrigued to hear more, and I know that you have quite a story. So going right back to the very beginning, as we do, we like to start with childhood because it shapes who we are. What was your childhood like?
Yes, so I was born in Tamworth.
Ah.
Yes, I'm a country girl.
Yeah.
Northwest New South Wales, country music capital.
Yes.
Not that I was
Do you like country music?
No, not really. Sorry, Keith.
Yeah.
No, I'm not really a country music girl, but my dad was a lawyer there, and my mother came over from Germany just after the Second World War. Yes, so my mother came over from Germany. She was an immigrant.
Oh, wow.
And so they met in Tamworth, and she was like the trophy wife, really. And Dad was a lot older than her. He was a ticket for her to have a better life. So that was really how their relationship was formed. So it was a little bit dysfunctional. And then childhood was challenging. We had everything provided for us sort of financially, but emotionally it was very challenging because I knew that my father was an alcoholic, but I didn't know that my mother was also an alcoholic. I didn't realise that until, upon reflection, until much later. Maybe in my 20s that realisation dropped in. So she was more of a weekend drinker, and because it was in the country, there wasn't really a lot to do. So she was a social drinker, but it was every day, you know. So it was sort of like, I knew by 5 o'clock she was really looking forward to having that drink. Whereas
cocktail hour.
Yes, yeah, that, you know, 5 o'clock you could hear the ice cubes coming out. And it all hinged on unhappiness, really, an unhappy marriage, and Dad was a very unhappy man. I'm not really sure of that whole backstory. My grandmother used to travel a lot. She was quite a hard woman. She was quite the matriarch, and she was quite formidable. I remember always being very frightened of her and having this huge respect for her. She had a big presence. From what I can piece together, she used to go off and leave. They were born in Hillston, in like even deeper in the country, and she would go off on these cruises overseas and just sort of leave the children there. And they sort of had to grow up fending for themselves. So they all had issues. And so Dad was always, you know, a drinker, and unfortunately he was also a very violent man as well. So it was like living with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It was quite frightening. And I remember spending a lot of my childhood just being very uncertain and not sure about what was going to happen next. There were definitely some frightening moments, those middle of the night where you wake up, and he'd come in sometimes after they'd been out for dinner, and Mum would be in my room and he'd come in and be violent. And so I remember sort of taking Mum, and we'd sneak out the back door and try and hide from him. So it was really quite frightening.
Do you have siblings?
I do. I have 2 brothers, but I was never really scared of Dad. To be honest, I know this is going to sound a little bit wacko, but when I was in utero, I found out that my father had really beaten Mum up, and I pretty much feel like I came out with my dukes up and a big attitude, like I'm coming out into this world to protect my mum. Wow. And so I was never frightened of him. So I used to just stand up to him.
That is amazing for a child. How old, like from age, I guess always? Like
it's just a knowing, a feeling that I had. I just came out with my dukes up, just say, come on, you know, give it to me. And he was big. He was a big man. He was a front row footballer and rugby union player. So he was a big fella. I can talk about it now because it's sort of like so long ago, but I do remember him, you know, being physically violent with me as well, beating me up. That set the stage for me not to have a healthy relationship with men, and not to know where that line was with men, to go, oh, this is abuse. This is physical, emotional, you know, this is abuse here. And so that was the unhealthy dynamic that then set me up for other relationships where I didn't know where those boundaries were, that is not okay, that behaviour is not acceptable.
No.
So that's the problem with that. I was a middle child, always wanted his attention, never really got it as a middle child and a girl.
Did he value the brothers more?
Yes.
Because they
Mum
were boys,
seemed
or?
to, yeah, I think so. Andrew seemed to just never get... Andrew was my older brother, so he seemed to be able to avoid my dad's wrath. And then Tim, he also did. But I was sort of the one that was the scapegoat, the black sheep. And I think it was because I used to stand up to him as well.
Were you named Mukti from the start?
No.
No. What was your name?
I don't talk about that.
Oh, really? Okay. Did you leave her behind?
I did, actually, because it feels strange to name that name.
Okay.
It doesn't really, it's like, to me, that was associated with the past, and it was about letting go of the past.
I understand.
Early 20s, after I had my first child, Kiana, I renamed myself.
Brilliant.
And
did you change your last name as well?
Well, I don't have a surname.
Oh, I guess I haven't.
So I'm just
noticed
Mukti, but I don't advise that because, well, there's a
it
couple
really
of things, you know, where I
Okay.
talk about don't call yourself or your brand after a name that you can't pronounce.
Yes.
And also don't have one
Single
name. Well, you need 2 names. It's a world of 2 name fields. So computer says
Say no.
Computer says no. So it's very, I don't recommend it.
Okay.
So don't have
Don't
one
do
name.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so the name means freedom and liberation, and it was just an ethos, but it was also, I was doing a yoga class and I always felt like I was going to change my name because I didn't feel like my name suited me or it was my name.
Oh, I'm curious now.
And so it's a Sanskrit name, so it means freedom and liberation, and in Hindu it means rebirth.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it was a strong name, but I felt like it was relevant to me and it felt right. So I just took that name on. And at that time I was living in a permaculture community, a small community called Crystal Waters, which is just outside of Brisbane, about an hour north, just outside of a little town called Mullaney.
Oh,
So that was
Mullaney,
very
I know Mullaney.
alternative.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I had Kiana there. She was a home birth. And
Hang
all
on, let's
sort
go
of-
back.
Yeah,
back.
I know. I'm just
I
going
want to
off
go
on
into
a
that, but
story.
let's go back. Okay, so dad, abusive. Mum, was she abusive?
No, she was.
Was she terrified? Was she like cowering,
No.
or did she stand up to dad, or was it
No,
just you?
she was strong. She was a really strong woman. I think she made herself very busy, and we always had this, beautiful home. Aesthetically, everything looked nice.
Yeah.
Everything looked okay from the outside, but it was traumatic. And she used to model, so she was a model. She used to do a lot of charity work.
Yeah.
So she was on a lot of committees. And I think she just busied herself, just buried herself in
Where was this? Where did you go
busyness.
up? In Tamworth. Oh, you told me. Sorry.
Yeah, Tamworth.
Yeah. Wow. So was it a bit of a society in Tamworth?
Yeah, there was, definitely.
Yeah.
There was that sort of stigma attached where you were there was different parts of the town, and there was the East Tamworth, and that was where all the big houses were and where all the doctors and lawyers and...
Did you go to private school?
I didn't to start with, but I did end up going to private school in grade 8.
Boarding school?
Yes. I went to Armidale.
Oh, you got out of there.
I got out of there.
How was that?
Well, I went in the second year of high school, and when I went to school, everyone had formed their cliques. So it was really hard.
In year 8, I did that too. It's
Yeah.
really hard.
Really hard.
You come in late and you don't know where you fit in,
Nope.
and
And
people
so that
are mean. Girls are mean in
Girls
year
are bitches.
Yeah.
Really nasty. Really nasty.
8. And you would have been beautiful and coming from a really good family, and
I was very insecure. I was very shy.
were you?
Yeah, I think so. Just very self-conscious, and coming into that environment, I had low self-esteem.
Oh, of course.
So-
what you'd been through.
Yeah,
Even though you were a fighter.
yeah. So, and then I spent high school in Armidale at Negs.
What were some of the beliefs that you think you had based on what you'd witnessed?
That I wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
That I wouldn't amount to anything.
Well, you proved them, didn't you?
Yeah, and I think that's what definitely gave me my fire and my impetus to keep going through adversity.
Yeah.
And there's certainly been a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, as you said, it shapes who you are, and that tenacity and that fight in me has definitely come from, my childhood. Wow. Absolutely.
And okay, so school, how were you at school? Were you interested in it, or?
I wasn't sort of like a straight A student, but I got through. I didn't really love school. I think my passion was I was more interested in the arts.
Yeah.
And then I've ended up in science. So I did what I needed to do to get through, but I didn't love school.
And you found your people in the end, or were they still bitchy right to the end?
No, I did find my group, my clique. Unfortunately, I think they were more the rebellious group of girls.
Yeah.
And there was 4 of us, and 2 of those girls have since passed through, I think, mainly through drugs.
Addiction, yeah.
So we were all kind of a little bit on that, rebellious, not intentionally being naughty, but just, I guess we'd all had our own traumas to deal with. So, yeah.
A bit of escapism. And,
Yeah.
And at that age, like you're just keen to see the world and do all the things. And
It was very, very disciplined, and I was very fearful of the headmistress that we had. She was also quite a frightening woman.
you probably got trauma around.
She was a force to be reckoned with. You didn't cross her.
So you didn't get in trouble. You were rebellious, but you were just doing it under the radar.
Oh, I remember getting in trouble once. We went on a school excursion, and I wrote on a national parks sign. I graffitied a national park sign. I didn't realise that that's what I was doing.
Okay.
And I wrote the name of the school on a national parks sign, and I nearly got expelled.
Ooh, yeah.
But I didn't really understand why it was a big thing and why such an issue was made about it.
Yeah.
I just felt quite naive. It wasn't an intentional thing.
Right.
And I remember that was a terrible whole experience because they needed to find out who had done it, and by this time I was too scared to admit to the fact that I was the one that had graffitied the sign. So I remember the whole form got taken into a meeting, and then eventually I got taken into her office, and she said to me, this is the most horrible thing that she said to me, and it would never be allowed these days, but she said to me, you hide behind the truth like your father hides behind the bottle.
Oh,
And I remember being 14 or 15 and I couldn't...
that is just diabolical.
Yeah, I couldn't comprehend it. I just remember being, you know when you have those moments where something's said to you and it just sticks and you just think...
it goes round and round in your mind and you've held it all to this day.
So she was a headmistress of the boarding school and that's what she had said to me.
Ghastly woman.
After that I really didn't have a great deal of interest in school.
Yeah,
It's
fair
just sort of it
enough.
really, I got through, but I wasn't in love with any of the subjects, and I really always hated the pressure of exams and studying. But it's interesting because I am now quite a formidable researcher and a reader, and I'm very passionate about researching
Yes.
and things that I'm interested
Yeah,
in.
well, your book,
But
Truth and Beauty, is a tome. Like it's chunky, and
Yeah.
you did a lot of work for that.
There's a lot of work that's gone into that, a lot of research, because I needed it to be very factual and evidence-based.
Yeah.
Because I also wanted to disrepute what I was finding. I wanted to, really get to the bottom of it, and I think that's in the wording,
it is.
I'm all about finding out the truth, and uncovering and peeling back the layers, investigative. Yeah.
So what happened after school?
Isn't it interesting? Almost got a blank. I remember I went to Sydney for a little while, did a
yeah.
stint there,
Yeah.
and then I wanted to travel. I wanted to go overseas, and so I ended up working on this is really random, I ended up working on a fishing boat.
A fishing boat. Okay, I thought you were going to say cruise ship, but
No, I ended up working on a fishing boat.
That's cool.
No, it wasn't. It was terrible.
Doing what?
As a deckhand.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Had you sailed before?
No, all I was
You're
interested.
from Tamworth.
It wasn't glamorous. It was on a prawn fishing trawler.
Oh, like a trawler. Wow.
Yeah.
How did you get into that?
Well, I really just wanted to save money, so my goal was to get to India, and so
So you were always interested in the alternative sort of like yoga lifestyle, or what was it that?
I don't know. I just had this thing. I need to get to India.
Why India? For a girl from Tamworth, like what was it, and how did you see that? Like what interested? What part of it were you
I
in?
can't explain that to you. I just felt this need to go to India. It was just like I need to go to the East and I guess find myself.
Were you reading texts and doing yoga or meditating or doing anything at that stage?
Not actively pursuing anything like that.
Spirituality?
Well, I'd always had this sense that there was more to life than what meets the eye. And I started reading Edgar Cayce when I was like 11 or 12 years old. So I was always interested in the other world, or there's something else beyond what we're doing and seeing. So the whole thing was about trying to save money to get to India, which I still haven't been to India.
No.
But I'm actually going in a couple of weeks. Not this lifetime, I haven't been.
Wow.
So there
I'm
you go.
surprised that it hasn't happened for you.
Well, it's just how life takes you on a journey. Yeah, you just end up in different places. So it's those sliding door moments that you have.
So you saved your money. Did you go somewhere?
I ended up, then I worked on some islands in hospitality.
Oh, did you? Which ones?
So Dunk Island, Lizard Island.
Oh, that would have been fun.
South Mole Island.
South Mole. I went to South Mole in the 80s.
I still don't think they've done that place up.
It's like a ghost town. I saw a video online about it.
It'd be quite derelict.
What happened to South Mole?
Yeah, so that was sort of, again, hospitality. And then I ended up in Brisbane and studying naturopathy and holistic medicine.
So what led you to that path?
An advertisement in a newspaper.
Really?
Yeah. I was interested in health and wellness, and I was interested in putting my energy into something and finding a career.
There were no influences in your family?
Not in my family, just in my own health journey. So I had a few health issues, and then I ended up at a college in Brisbane, and then...
What sort of health issues?
Well, it wasn't anything too drastic, but back then it was really hard to diagnose. It was like I had candida really severely, and I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
So a lot of gut issues, and it hadn't been properly diagnosed. And I went to a naturopath, and then it sort of went from there. And then I ended up working with her, which was fantastic. I learned a lot.
How long did you study naturopathy for?
That was 3 years. Then I did acupuncture. I didn't finish that.
Why didn't you finish it?
I couldn't stand the thought of putting needles in people. I found it really just that sense of putting a needle in someone's skin and twisting it around.
Yeah.
I found it difficult to kind of get over that.
Yeah.
So I didn't end up finishing that, but I did study Chinese medicine, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. Did you finish that one?
Yes, I did quite all the subjects, but I just didn't finish acupuncture. So I did a lot of complementary medicine.
Yeah.
So I did all the sort of the foundational subjects, but then didn't go on as a practicing acupuncturist. And then I ended up studying. Then I went on and studied what we called back then beauty therapy.
Yeah.
Became a skin therapist.
Did you like that?
That side of it. It was an adjunct or an add-on to the business that I had with my husband.
Oh.
And he was a hairdresser.
That's right. I remember you telling me this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so tell me that again, the story behind that.
Well, we had a couple of hairdressing salons in Brisbane.
That's right.
And then he was practicing as a hairdresser, and then I thought, well, maybe we can offer additional services. So I was doing a lot of the massage side of things, and that was helping me put myself through college. And then...
This before Kiani?
Kiana, yeah. That paid for my tuition. And then I thought, well, why don't I add facials onto this, what we're offering? And so that's how that came about.
Okay. What happened next?
So next was... Gee, it's hard thinking back over the years when you go back. And next was...
How did you end up in the community?
Yeah, so next was I met this guy who came in off the street for a massage, and he started talking about this community.
Wow.
And
so where were you living at this stage? Brisbane?
We're in Brisbane, Highgate Hill. And he was talking about this permaculture community.
What's the permaculture
community?
So
permaculture is about sustainable lifestyle, really just about a design. So when you're designing a home or a garden, you have different zones where you have a house, and then you have your garden, and then you kind of design it all out so that services the need of the land and your environments.
So it's very sustainable and community minded.
Yeah, and so they were
But you live together with other people.
Yeah, but we had our own title,
Oh, okay.
but it was a community. You buy your own plot of land, and then you build a house, and then you design around these principles of permaculture.
And it's, so it's about farming the land as well,
Yeah, so it's about sustainable farming the land. So this is back nearly 30 years ago. I was really interested in a healthier way of life, and I fell pregnant with her. We were still living in Brisbane. We went to this permaculture community, and I didn't want to go back to the city. I felt like the city isn't where I feel most comfortable. Doesn't feel like that's where I belong. So we moved there.
So your partner was happy at that time to go?
He was commuting backwards and forwards. So it was about an hour, a bit over an hour, hour and 15 minutes back then.
So you weren't working in the salon anymore? You decided to...
No, I wasn't working in the salon.
Because you're pregnant?
I was, but I set up a co-op. So I set up a place where people could come and sell their goods. It was sort of like a health food shop come co-op. And I ran that until Kiana was born.
Wow.
And from there, I ended up working in a few Airbnbs, bed and breakfasts. Wow. And then we'd have teachers and nurses that would come and have facials. And then that's how the whole journey into creating the brand started from there.
Okay.
So need to find opportunity. I was doing facials on clients.
That's right, yes.
And then people would say to me, what products are you using? And I was using a little bit of everything. I remember I had a bit of Gelique, and I had a bit of another brand called Paul Pender's, which was like a multi-level marketing brand that came out of the States.
Yeah.
A little bit of Hauschka.
There just wasn't much, was there?
No.
Back in the, what was this, 90s?
There was late 90s.
Late
90s, yeah. Because I loved aromatherapy and plant medicine, and they were my sort of favourite subjects when I was studying, I thought, wow, this can't be too hard. Maybe I can just create my own skincare.
Yeah.
And then I met a woman, and she had worked on her own brand, and she had come from the States. And she gave me, back then, there was really no internet. There was nowhere to find out information other than to go to the library. So she gave me all these books, and I started studying and researching how to make natural products myself through these books.
Amazing.
And then I ended up studying cosmetic formulating. There was a course. The only one then was in the UK, so I did that remotely.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what was it like living in the community with people?
It was interesting. I think the foundations of a community is to have commonality, and it was a little bit dysfunctional.
Yeah.
And I think most communities are, unless you've got a really strong... The commonality there was the permaculture, but not everybody was practicing. So for some people it was just sort of like a place to come and live in community and retire. But I think it's difficult living with a group of people when you don't have the same ideals and values.
Yeah.
And then that flows
So
on.
was there a leader?
No.
So it wasn't like culty at all. There was no one sort of going, I'm the boss and this is how we're going to do it. Well, that's probably in a way harder, as you say, because you don't have these common values.
Well, there's no hierarchy.
Yeah.
So the only way for it to work would be, what's the word I'm looking for? Meritocracy?
Meritocracy.
Meritocracy. Thank you. I couldn't say it.
Yeah.
And I think that would work when, someone's good at a certain skill set. So they end up being the person
They get elected.
They get elected to, be the person that's the best at that particular role or skill set.
How long did you last there?
5 years.
Okay.
And then when I started the business and I started manufacturing, it was really difficult to get things...
Were you still with your husband at that stage?
No, we had gone our separate ways. When Kiana was 2,
that's right.
We separated.
And what was that like? Was there a very obvious reason for that, or was it just you just drifted apart? Or
I think for me, when both my children turned 2, I realised that I think it's very important to choose the father of your children wisely.
Yeah.
And I realised that we weren't cohesive. I didn't feel supported in those relationships. There wasn't any particular reason other than I was probably struggling with being understood. Again, unhealthy role modelling as a child.
Yeah. But there was no abuse or domestic violence or anything? So maybe emotional stuff?
Yeah. And I think that comes up in anything that's not resolved is going to come up in your relationship.
Yeah.
But again, I've always worked on myself. I've always, I used to see a therapist.
Yeah, I was going to ask,
Yeah,
how early did you get into therapy?
I did an EST course when I was 18. EST. So that was sort of like diving into the emotional. I think it's still around. I think they still do it.
What does it stand for?
Don't even remember. But that was the first course that I did. And I remember it was a lot of processing. There was a lot of, cathartism, a lot of breathing, a lot of, moving things through your body.
Great. So
talking about
sort of
things.
stuff.
Yeah, and talking about things.
That's good that you had the insight, the wherewithal to do that after what you've been through.
Well, I think it's really important to move those things through your body. And then when you start working on people as well, I mean, everything's stored in the tissues, everything's stored in the body. It doesn't just disappear. It's like it's there.
100%.
And so, if we don't move through it and we don't acknowledge it, it's going to manifest in disease or illness in some shape or form at some point. Because you can't suppress it.
100%.
For me, I was always interested in working on and resolving those issues. So yes, I had a lot of anger towards my father that I didn't resolve for a long time.
Were you angry with your mum?
Well, that wasn't until much later.
Yeah, you said she hid her alcoholism.
Yeah.
As in, was she obviously drinking socially, but was she also sneaking drinks out the back, or?
No.
It
was just something that I didn't name it or realise. She was functioning, but she drank to escape her own unhappiness.
And was it like she was hungover in the morning and she wasn't much help?
I think it was more the weekends. The weekends were bad.
Yeah.
They would not be around. They would not be available. So we just ended up entertaining ourselves.
That's tough.
Yeah. And it was really dysfunctional. For
so
me,
there was no strong... Any other family members that came in to help?
My grandmother, I was very close to her, so on my mum's side, and she was my rock.
The German, did she come and live in Australia?
They all immigrated here.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Was it just your mum?
Just after the war.
Wow. So she was around.
Yeah.
That's good.
And so
could she see what was happening? Did she
yes,
see? So she would come in and help with the kids and...
Yeah. Yeah.
So neither of your parents ever got treatment?
No. No. Mum stopped drinking when she was probably in her 40s. She turned towards Buddhism.
Wow.
So she...
Did they separate?
Yes.
At what stage?
I was about 18, and then my father died when I was in my late 20s.
Alcoholism?
He had a stroke and cancer. He was riddled. He was a very unhealthy man. So it sort of brings back that whole thing about, you know, if we don't deal with our trauma, it does end up manifesting in some way. He died a long time ago, and I didn't really ever make peace with him. No. But I also realised that you don't sometimes get closure, and you have to be okay with that as well.
What about your mum? Did you have some closure with her?
Mum's still alive.
Yeah?
Unfortunately, she has dementia. So that ambiguous loss to deal with, where you have a relationship with them but it isn't an emotional relationship. So she's on a loop, and it's like now going and visiting her and spending time with her, it's like spending time with a child, really.
Yeah.
So it's just, you know, the same questions. There's no real depth. I can't share with her what's going on in my life or how I'm
and she
feeling.
won't remember it, yeah.
No, and then
so
they
hard.
just, the questions, you know, and you have to have a huge amount of patience as well, because it's a little bit of a drag.
Is she in Tamworth or is she here?
No, she's here in Byron. I ended up moving
her.
her.
Oh, yeah.
I do my best to get there at least once a week.
Oh, that's really good.
Well, there's a lot of guilt around that too. But
Well,
it
guilt,
is...
but also, I'm sure you feel a bit abandoned by her as well.
And anger, you know, I think
Yeah.
that comes up too when you just sort of like... And I definitely have that anger towards her for not being available and also not doing something about the situation that she was in. But she was also incredibly scared. She was scared of Dad. I remember you asked me that. She wasn't visibly cowering, but she was too scared to do anything about removing herself from that situation. Probably financially, that was probably more. And back then, you know, there was more of a stigma attached to it. And he was violent, so, you know, he threatened her if she was going to leave, that he would make life very difficult for her. He was a scary man. He was a really scary man.
It's just so,
So she stayed in that relationship until she was strong enough to get out. And I think that's sort of, you know, that's something really important, is if something's not right in any way, shape or form, is understanding what abuse is and when it's unsafe and to remove yourself. And even now with people, regardless of whether you're in a relationship with them or not, if they're in your business or in your life and you don't feel safe or you feel uncomfortable in their presence, then you have a right to remove yourself from that situation or environment.
Absolutely.
And it's important to do so and to understand what those boundaries are. But for a lot of people who have had a childhood like that, it is very hard to delineate and to realise where those boundaries are, because you're so disassociated or it's normalised.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's codependence. I mean, I learned about that, and it's often a result of, you know, having either parents with addiction or abuse or various mental health issues, and it results in that very thing, is that you actually have no idea about boundaries, you don't know your emotions. Like, I found out that I was codependent too when I went through this whole thing, and it's fascinating. It's like, it's often, you know, they say a higher percentage of us than we realise are codependent. Did you find that the therapy that you did, you were able to start putting boundaries in place? I guess you did, because you left your partner.
I did, but I also went on to have other relationships where I was in a codependent relationship and also with someone who was, you know, a narcissist.
Yeah.
It all kind of fits in together, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Where you just, that whole thing about not understanding boundaries.
What about alcoholics? Did you have
No,
that's
no.
good.
And I've had a zero tolerance for that. So I was always very careful to navigate myself away from that. I think being in a relationship, a codependent relationship with a narcissist, you know, that's just like, all the boxes are ticked for that to align, for that to happen, literally, you know, all those foundations are there for that to just roll on into.
That's right.
And so that relationship was a big chunk of my adult life.
So that was
a good 9 years.
Was that not Kiana's father?
No, not either of the fathers of my children.
Right.
But I stayed in that relationship, and I thought I was really in love with this man, and he had me under his thumb. He knew that, he manipulated me, and I ended up getting quite used in that relationship.
So was it kind of coercive control and things like that?
Yeah, and emotional, and he ended up having affairs, and I kind of knew I was being gaslit. But the unravelling of that was also the making of me when I realised, and then I got out of that relationship and I was heartbroken. That was my big grief, that one. That was massive. But it floored me, and we were living in Bali at the time, and I came back to Australia and I was literally on the bare bones of my bum. I think I was like 40-something kilos. I couldn't eat from the grief. I was so distraught. And then I thought, you know what? Fuck you. I'm coming back, and I'm just really putting everything into my business now. And because it was a little bit of a hiatus, we were living in Bali, I was being a digital nomad.
Yeah.
A digital nomad back then. When was that? That was 2015. I left there. So I was there 2012 to 2015.
How was Mukti as the skincare range there, and like what level was it at? How big was it?
Yeah, it was. It still hadn't, really reached its pinnacle. It hadn't really got off the ground. So it was like that was a good 15 years in. So that was all learning. That was bootstrapping all the way, and not really having the resources or the finances or anything like that. It was just
kept going.
Figuring things out.
Isn't that brilliant that you...
It's a long journey.
It has.
Yeah.
So how many years has it been?
I'm going to 25 years next year.
Of Mukti.
Yeah.
Organics.
So I'd say we really only got runs on the board around about 2015, after 16, 17.
Wow.
That was when it really started to become a more known brand.
How did you persevere when it... that for that long, that's amazing self-belief and resilience.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing about being in business for that long, is just having that. I mean, obviously it was able to, keep me in a lifestyle and pay for, raising my children, which was the whole goal and objective. But I didn't ever really enter business to make money and sell it and for financial investment. Back then it was more about, okay, this is something that I'm passionate about, that I love, that I want to do and create. I want to make beautiful products for people so that they feel beautiful, and I want them to be aesthetically pleasing. I want them to be, the formulations when we first started weren't as elegant as they are now, and I didn't have those resources. I wasn't necessarily commercial or corporate. I've always been more of a creative. So then, you find those people and you bring them into your life, and then you can scale. It's definitely been a bootstrapping experience all the way.
Did you take funding at all?
No.
Never?
Never.
Wow.
So this is sort of all me.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and so through that journey, I guess that tenacity has been the thing that's just sort of kept me going, and resilience.
Yeah, there's major resilience. Well, as you say, you came out with your mitts up, you were ready to go.
Yeah.
So you've always had that strength.
Yeah, I mean, definitely had some challenges, and business teaches you a lot about yourself.
Tell us some of the other challenges, that like the most challenging periods where you had to really pull yourself together and keep going, and how did you do that?
So obviously you've got your business life, and then concurrently with that you're raising children, and then going through relationship and other life emotional upheavals. It's so interesting, Sigourney, because I don't know sometimes. I don't even know how I got through. I just did. I just kept going.
One foot in front of the other.
And there was some really challenging times. I remember going over to Hong Kong and doing one of the Cosmoprof expos, and we'd just had organic certification, and we'd used a new preservative system. And I was there handing out samples, and the girls rang me from Australia and said, "Hey Mukti, don't give out any of those samples. We've found some mould spores."
Oh God.
And the guy that I had got this preservative system from had done all his own testing, and I hadn't done it independently. And so it all was, on paper it all looked fine, but it had failed. And so I literally was at this trade show and I had nothing to
show,
no,
to give out.
So that was a
What
really
did you
hard.
do?
Well, I came back to Australia and literally started again. We put big skip bins out the front of the business and
Chucked it all. How much stock did you have to get rid of?
oh, it was, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of stock. So that was a pretty
really
bad.
tough.
That was a pretty bad moment.
Yeah.
And then there was another one in 2009 where I nearly, and I can't mention the name of the brand, but I almost merged with another brand. That was a really big learning experience too, which I can't really talk about. Just I nearly lost the business then as well. So that was why financially I never really got ahead, because I was constantly, they were the two big sort of moments where I lost almost everything and had to start again. But then that gives you that tenacity and resilience. So, you know, I have borrowed money at different times in parcels of $50,000 and I've paid it back. So I've only ever had small loans and I've maintained control and ownership of the business. So,
And how big is it now?
well, we're a medium-sized business. I have 30 staff. We're international, sell in multiple countries. We have a big online presence. That's a big part of our business. I feel like we're probably one of Australia's leading organic brands.
Oh, for sure.
I guess that's been the journey of...
And you've got your own on-site production facilities.
We do everything here in-house. So they're all my formulations, they're all my IP.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, as I said, they're a lot more elegant and sophisticated than when I first started, but...
You know how I feel about your products. They are beautiful.
Well, I'm always interested in upgrading them and updating them. So, you know, when I found out about peptides, I was one of the first organic brands to start using those. And then when I found out about native extracts, I was one of the first brands to start using those. I guess I'm always interested in bettering myself and bettering my products, and they're an extension of who I am. So I'm very sort of close to them, and it's really important for me. Well, it's just important to be adding value and not just creating something for the sake of creating it. You know, we're in control of all our processes, we're in control of all our procedures, we're a close-knit team. The environment that we have here at work is, for me, is absolutely important, because the health of the business is a reflection of me and who I am as a person. So it's important to create a safe, healing, supportive environment for people to be working in.
What is the secret to that when you're designing your spaces? I mean, your offices are beautiful. I mean, the artworks and everything is just so beautifully done and so on brand. How did you go? What was the design process like?
So the aesthetic is very much about natural and sustainable materials as well. I was able to design this with an architect. It was an old welding...
We're in Mullumbimby.
Yes, we're in Mullumbimby Industrial Estate.
It's just outside of Byron, not far from Byron Bay.
Yes, so we're in the Northern Rivers of Australia. So this was a welding workshop. And then the shed next door was added on, so that was sort of... there was nothing in that area there. So at the back we have all of production, and we dispatch from here as well. So we fulfill, manufacture, we have the offices, and then we have the beauty rooms here.
And the beauty rooms are
So you
beautiful
can have
too.
an
So what
experience.
architect did you work with?
A local architect from Byron.
And interior design, or?
That was just Kiana and I.
Really?
We were just putting it together.
Very beautiful.
Yeah.
What a lovely job.
Pinterest is a great source of wealth of...
Do you have any styling tips or advice when you're trying to create a restful, peaceful, wellness sort of space?
I think, you know, colours are really important. So we've gone with a lot of brand colours, and just I think when you go for a neutral palette, it's easier to have your add-ons. It has to be a space where you feel safe and comfortable, because when you're working in an environment as well, it needs to be a pleasant work space and a workplace.
It's quite feminine, but
it's definitely
earthy.
Yeah,
the pinks and yeah.
Yeah.
Is this a local artist?
Yes, this is Gabrielle Poole. So I've got quite a few of her paintings, and I have some of hers at home as well. I saw her exhibiting in Byron, and I thought that when we were designing here, wasn't this piece, but there was a similar piece that she had, and so I rang her and I said I'd love to put some of your paintings in the showroom. So that's sort of how I developed a relationship with her.
And do you have any other special things that you want to mention in terms of things that you've collected for the space?
Gosh, well, we've been here now we moved in 21. It's been a little while since we did it. It probably needs another refresh now.
Oh, really?
I think I love at the front how we've incorporated the plant into the...
Yeah, that's given it a little lift.
Into the showroom, into the space there.
Didn't you have your office in Mullaney for a while?
Yes,
yeah.
Based out of Mullaney. We had the manufacturing plant and offices up there as well.
So I've always...
Well, I've been remote from the business, so I can work on the business and not necessarily be in the business.
Yeah,
and
you
I think
were doing that long before it was a thing.
Yeah.
Digital nomad.
Yeah, so I spent the first 10 years in Mullaney every day when we went to Bali, which was about 2012, so up until that period. And then I realised that I didn't have to be working in the business every day, physically there.
Yeah.
I think, again, if you've got a good team of people that you can trust and rely on, then you can do that.
Absolutely.
But you also need to be, it's like building a house or doing a renovation, you kind of need to be there to keep your finger on the pulse to make sure that everything's moving forward, because if you're not there and your energy's not pushing it forward, then things don't necessarily turn out the way that you would like them to.
Yeah.
And if you like to control things, then it's important that you're there.
Do you like to control things?
Yes, I would have to say I do.
You're quite
It's important
with
to me.
Everything.
I think it's important to have control, especially when you've had a childhood where you haven't been in control. So that's another sort of lever there that tends to come into play. I wouldn't say I'm controlling or a control freak. Like, I allow things to happen, but I still like to have an overview of the processes and sort of have the final say on things.
What do you think your staff would say about you?
Well, past staff probably have some issues.
Yeah, that's always the way.
But I probably had some issues with them as well.
Yeah.
I think that everyone that's here loves being here. I've been able to maintain a lot of those people.
I get a good vibe from everyone I talk to. So they all seem to really love working here.
Yeah, some of them have been with me for a long time.
That's a good sign.
It is a good sign, and that's really what you want. You don't want a high attrition rate because it takes up time and energy.
How long is the longest staff member?
I think the longest now is probably 10 years because we moved from Mullaney as well, so we had to relocate, so I lost a few.
People,
But a few people have come with me. I've still got my graphic designer.
That's cool.
My daughter still works with me
Yes.
since she left school.
How old is she now?
Kiana, she's 29.
29.
So she's worked with me her whole career, adult
so
life.
nice.
She was really about the design and aesthetics, so she leads all of that, the creative. So
what's that like, working with your daughter?
We work pretty well together.
Yeah.
I think probably at times it's probably difficult for her because she needs to set a boundary with me to say, Mum, I don't want to talk about work right now.
Yeah.
Because it can always flow into work.
Always.
Whereas my youngest daughter won't work in the business because she'd rather have that separate relationship from me. It's not of interest to her.
Yeah, interesting. Now I want to talk about your wellness because you're very fit and you've got lots of good wellness practices.
Yeah, so that's really important for me. My whole ethos behind that and what keeps me going is I think about ageing and that process of ageing, and everything that I do now is setting me up for ageing well.
Yeah.
So I want to be able to trim my toenails when I'm 80 or
that's a good one. I like you that you have these goals,
or get in and out of a car. I think it's important to be independent and mobile. So mobility is really important. It's something that we need to practice every day. And if we don't do all those foundational goal-setting things now as far as our health and wellness, then that's really going to show up when we age and how we age. So for me, that's really important. My dad was young when he died, and my mother's now in an aged care facility, so I guess that's a motivating force.
So she's not very mobile?
She's mobile, but she's mentally not okay.
Yeah.
So that's really important for me, just those foundational blocks. So making sure that I eat well, making sure that I'm mobile, making sure that I'm doing those protocols and practices every day.
So what are some of those?
So I begin my day with, I meditate twice a day. I do a 20-minute morning.
Vedic?
Yes. Yeah. That's been the thing that has most resonated with me.
Who did
that
you learn
practice.
with?
Gary. Gary Goro. And the trip I'm about to go on.
When did you learn?
Well, I've done different styles of meditation, but with Gary, I think it was when I first moved up here, so it would have been 1920.
2019.
Oh,
2019.
sorry.
Sorry.
When I was
you were
19,
19 or 20?
No,
Yeah.
that didn't make sense.
Yeah.
So, when we
Yeah.
first moved up
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
and I got in touch with Gary because I'm friends with Peter and Ida, who are co-owners of Soma.
Cool.
They're personal friends.
Yep.
And so I met Gary through them. And then I'm actually travelling to India with Johnny Pollard from One Giant Mind.
Yeah,
who's
wow.
also a Vedic practitioner.
Amazing.
And so
you're going to get your India trip in.
I'm finally going to get it in, which is good. I need that reset right now.
Yeah.
I think it's good to just take everything into account and just sort of reset myself.
Is it a meditation trip?
Yes,
Yeah,
it is.
like it's a retreat?
It's a retreat, yes.
How many and what are you doing? And...
It's a 2-week, it'll be a rounding practice. It's a series of movements that you do, and then you go through...
Ayurveda and...
No, there will be those sorts of treatments as well.
Yeah.
To be honest, I haven't really looked at the itinerary. I'm also one of those people who's like, yes, I've booked that, and yes, I'll have a look at what I need to do or get prepared for that. But I think that email's just come through and I haven't checked it. But we're doing rounding, which is a series of exercises that you do that help you drop into a deeper state of meditation. And then so you do that, and it's like
yoga, isn't it? Yeah.
They're sort of based on the principles of yoga.
Okay.
And then you do the series of exercises, and then you do a 20-minute meditation, and then you do that again. And so each time you do that, it's called a round.
Yeah. How many rounds do you do?
I think it's 5 at a time, so it'll be 10 a day. So what they say is that the practice or the retreat will be the equivalent of doing 2 years normal meditation.
Wow.
So it's a bit
Have you done many retreats? Are you a bit of a retreat goer?
Another girlfriend, Nina, we did a trip to Nepal earlier this year. So that was a really great... She's a local author.
Okay.
And that was a creative writing retreat, and we walked up to near the base of Everest. So we left...
Wow.
Yeah. So we started at Lukla, and then we walked a 2-week trip, but we walked for about 8 or 9 days, covering about 20 kilometres a day. And then it was a creative writing process. So,
what did you write?
Well, we just do a series of exercises before we started. But it was all about mindfulness and being in the environment that we were in, and also the physical challenges of, walking at a higher elevation as well. So,
altitude, yeah.
Altitude sickness. That was also a pretty intense trip.
What are some of the most amazing, treatments and retreats or healing practices that you've experienced that have really helped you?
Yeah, so another process I did a long time ago was a rebirthing training.
Wow.
So that was all breath work, and that was a 6-month program.
Wow.
So I trained to be we call it rebirthing back then. So that was a process of going into a series of breathing techniques that then helps to release emotional trauma.
What's it called now? Is it called something else now?
I think it's just referred to as some holotropic breathing.
Holotropic.
A lot of those techniques.
Yeah, right.
It's
What does it
probably
involve?
fairly similar.
Is it just, what kind of breath work is it?
Well, you do a series of deep breathing, and then you keep pushing through until you get to a point where your body sort of goes into what's called tetany. So for me, it's a non-negotiable. I got to a point where it was like, above all else, that time for me is more important than anything else that I do.
Yeah, that's what Gary said.
Well, it's harder for you because you've got children as well, but you have to carve out that time.
Yeah.
So for me, I do it as soon as I wake up.
Yep.
So I'll wake up, I'll have something to drink, I'll just have a water and a lemon juice.
Yep.
And then I'll go straight back to the bed.
Yep.
And then into a sitting position. Sometimes I might even stay lying down.
Yep.
And just while I'm still in that state of, theta, I'm not quite awake. I'm still I'm more receptive.
Yeah.
And then I just go straight into it.
It's
and that
beautiful.
20 minutes just is a beautiful way to wake up. And it's just that gentle awakening between, coming into the day, still being in that really relaxed state, stress-free state. So I'd recommend that to start the practice.
To get back into it,
Yeah, and then probably similar to you, I have mine set at 4 o'clock, and 4 p.m. is never a great time. And for you, it's probably, you know, the kids are
shopping.
back from school.
Yeah,
blah,
that's
blah,
why
blah.
I've got it then, because it's right before school finishes.
The other time I find that works for me is just before I go to bed.
Oh yeah. Does it not energise you too much? Sometimes they say it can be too energising.
No, it does the absolute opposite for me. It just prepares me for sleep. And then also having a space, a regular space that you go back to that's like, there's your cushions or whatever it is that's there, your altar, those things that are special to you. I light a candle, I have, you know, I might have a few pictures there or crystals or whatever it is that you want that's your space, so that you're carving that time out. And then once, it's like a muscle that you don't use, you know, it starts to atrophy. So you just have to keep that muscle going, and then you just have to make that commitment to yourself.
Absolutely.
But it has to become a want, not a have to.
That's right. You have to remember how good it makes you feel and love it.
And something happened for me where it became, especially when I got an advanced mantra, it was like it became a want, not a need.
So it was when you got the advanced mantra. What do you think about, what was it about getting your mantra that sort of moved it along for you?
I don't know, but since then it's been a wild ride.
Really?
Yeah. Anything that's not matching my frequency at the moment is just, it's moving out of my life pretty bloody quickly.
So you just feel like you have more focus or attunement or something?
It's like anything that's not aligned with me and my purpose and what is right for me and my personal life, my business life. If it's not working, it's moving through really fast.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, so that's been a big shift. So for me, it's just...
When did you get your advanced mantra?
Probably 6 months ago.
And basically that's just an extension of your existing mantra, right? So you still say your original mantra and then there's like a la or something.
That's right. And you just, what happens is with each succession, you just get a longer mantra.
Did Gary give you that?
No.
You're like, oh,
you're putting me on
Gary.
The spot now. Sorry, Gary. It was just how things evolved, and I sometimes think the right teacher comes into your life at a certain time. And for me, I've always asked for, I feel ready to do this now. I feel ready to explore this. So my next thing that I'm wanting to explore is Kriya Yoga, which is then going to help me become even more centered.
What's Kriya Yoga?
Well, you'll have to find that out.
Okay. How do you spell it?
Kriya, Kriya Yoga. Okay. Again, there's a series of breaths and movements that you do that help to deepen your practice. Everything for me is about...
Or is it a very old thing? It's just
it's an ancient Indian thing.
Okay.
Yeah, so no, it's not. It's not new. Well, now that I've mentioned it,
I'll hear it.
So I asked for a teacher, and so they've just, you know, I think when you're, what do they say? When the student's ready, the teacher arrives.
Yeah.
So when you're ready for that, it will present itself.
What other practices do you do? So do you do breath work every day or anything else?
Yes, so I do, when I train with Matt, my partner who's a PT, we do breath work at the beginning of the session. It's just a short series of breath work for a few minutes.
Because have you got a training, like a gym? Where is it?
He has his training studio in Habitat in Byron.
Yeah.
So I do that 3 times a week. And then on the alternate days, I walk. Up until recently, I just had some surgery. So it was just something that I needed to do for myself that was no longer a fit.
Yeah, okay.
So it was about letting that go, which was also to do with armouring and protecting myself. I think you can work out what it was.
Yep.
It was really good to let that go.
Do you feel better?
Oh, 1,000%. If anyone's thinking about it, I highly recommend
Was it affecting you, do you think?
Not necessarily. Wasn't an illness? Not necessarily physically, but it just felt like it wasn't who I was and it wasn't aligned with... It was something I felt that needed to go. And I made the right choice and the right decision. There's obviously a whole lot of layers attached to that as well, but I did that 20 years ago, so it wasn't who I am now. I felt ready for that too, and that's all sort of come as a result of this deepening my spiritual practice. It's something I'd thought about for a couple of years, but then the timing was right to do that. But why I spoke about that was because I haven't been able to do my normal physical exercise for the past 6 weeks. So I'm on week 7 recovery after that. So that was interesting too, because I am someone who likes to move and be physical, so I had to let all that go.
Yeah. How many weeks recovery is it?
I think it's very individual, but again, I prepped myself well in advance for that, and I also took, you know, the right protocols and supplements, and so it wasn't. I had thought it was going to be far, far, far worse than it was, and it was really on a scale of 1 to 10. It was probably 2 or 3.
Oh, that's good.
I thought it was going to be horrendous because there were multiple sides to that, so a big surgery. So I've been walking on the beach, and I love walking on the beach. That to me is...
Do you have dogs or anything like that?
I do, but I've stopped taking them because that's my me time now.
Yeah, cool.
If the dogs are with me, you know, you've got to throw the ball and keep them entertained, and then keep an eye on where they are. And
So how long do you walk for?
so an hour.
That's great.
And no phone.
Oh.
Absolutely no phone. No shoes.
Grounding.
That's right. And by right where the water breaks, so you've got the electrons as well.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah, so positive ions. So when you're walking, you're grounding, so you're getting that energy from the ocean as well, and you're building the electrons in your body.
So you actually walk right where the water breaks?
Right where the water breaks.
So 1 foot in the water and 1 foot on land?
Well, you just sort of right at the edge. Yeah, you don't have to be in, you're just sort of at the edge.
I love that.
And then the other really important thing that no one does, it's highly beneficial and it's a free hack, is do not wear sunglasses.
Oh, yeah. In the morning, yeah.
So you're getting the melatonin and also for the melanin. So a lot of sunburn is associated with melanin in the skin and melatonin in the eyes. So eyes are a filter. So they actually have a form of sun protection and SPF by not wearing sunglasses.
So that will create an SPF on your skin?
Yeah, it creates a barrier. So your sunglasses are creating a barrier. So if you get sunburn, it's more likely that you've had sunglasses on.
That's fascinating.
There's a lot of interesting studies coming out about that, a lot of science about light. And I mean, sunlight's been very demonized. So it's a healing
totally. It's the vitamin
element
D
that we have.
And the circadian rhythms.
Absolutely.
And the mood boosters.
Everything. I mean, in the same way that, you know, plants have chlorophyll, we also require sunlight for our own health.
And earth.
And back in the days, they used to, you remember, you know, back in the 1800s and early 1900s, they'd wheel sick people out into the sun to heal them. And then we look at infrared as well. So infrared lights are really another.
Do you have any panels at home?
I've got one here, and I do at home as well. I use infrared, and
How often? For how long?
As often as possible.
Yep.
So at least several times a week.
Yep.
And then also for this healing, I was using the infrared.
Yep.
And then, you know, saunas are another good thing.
You're an ice bath and a sauna person?
I don't love the ice bathing.
No,
I'm not going to lie. I don't love it. I'll do a cold shower.
Yeah, I'm okay with cold showers, but ice baths I really struggle with.
Something very traumatising about that. And I
Do
think,
you know they say people who have been through trauma shouldn't do it?
Yeah, and I think women as well. There's some new studies that have come out in relation to women and ice bath.
Oh,
but I did go through a series of doing it, you know, after training. But I think too, it's a mental thing too, just to break through. I think it's a good thing to do, to experience it.
Yeah, once
I think
or twice.
I think it's good to go through hardship too.
Yes.
And that's what that is. It's really breaking through hardship. But I think the benefits of that, you know, if you have experienced trauma, you've also got to weigh that up as well.
Yeah. But I think a little, cold shower is actually doing a lot of the same things.
Yeah.
You know?
As
that
long as
daily thing of, oh God, can I do this? Yeah, I can do this.
Yeah, it's not pleasant.
Yeah.
I can put myself through a little bit of unpleasantness. But if you've experienced a lot of trauma, you don't need to have more unpleasantness on top of that.
No, I don't think so.
So that beach walk for me is my mental, emotional grounding, everything. Like I love that, and I actually love doing that on my own. Yeah, that was a big part of my healing process recently, in my healing journey. And I love the fact that it doesn't cost anything. Anyone can do it. You don't necessarily need to be by the beach, but that whole grounding experience and that getting off the screens, you know.
Yeah, God.
Less time on screens, less blue light, all of that supports emotional and mental health and well-being. You know, removing yourself from that. I mean, it's just literally everything to do with the screen is literally blah, 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 isn't it?
Yep.
So I think it's important to have that stillness and cut that chatter and be okay about being in your own company and being okay with yourself and just sitting and being still.
What meditation teaches you, doesn't it? Wow.
Yeah.
Now, we haven't really gone too deep into clean beauty, which is funny because that's probably what you talk about a lot. What drove it originally for you? You know, how did you even decide? Because you started doing this before it was a thing. You know, obviously there's Jalique and Walida, but yeah, how did you come to decide to go down the path of organic and?
Yeah, so I recognised a niche, and I also wanted to. I did allude to earlier, I love plants and plant medicine. So for me, I just thought the healing capacity of being able to utilise some of these key ingredients that I'd researched and that I use in the products and have for many, many years, the amazing, things like sea buckthorn berries and calendula and goji kola, centella asiatica, all of those beautiful, incredible gifts that we have that have multiple layers to them and vitamins and compounds that, they're so multifaceted and they are life-healing medicine. So for me, it just made sense to be able to incorporate those and to have control over being able to use them in the percentages that I wanted to use them that would work, and then putting them all together in that creative aspect of pulling a formulation together and making it so that it's stable and functional and delivers an effective result. That's been a massive challenge and a big creative process, and figuring a lot of that out, because back then there were no green chemists and there wasn't a segment of the industry. So it was very much about figuring things out and pioneering. And I think back then there was Sharon McGlinchey from MV Megan Larson from Sudashi. I think the three of us, we only just met recently, but I think we were all on that journey as OGs way back in the sort of turn of the century. And it was a love, I think, for all of us, finding that passion and love of plants and plant medicine. So, yeah.
What are some of the biggest misconceptions about beauty products and their ingredients? I mean, obviously your book, Truth in Beauty, is so well researched and you have a lot of factual information up your sleeve. What are the biggest misconceptions?
Well, the biggest one would be that natural products don't work.
Yeah.
So I think that, where I'm sitting today is a living example of using natural products, that they do have an effect on the skin. I think that for my age, I look pretty bloody good.
You do.
I'm not going to tell you how old I am.
You don't tell.
No, it's a lifestyle choice as well, but I think for me, that would be the biggest one, that natural products don't work. God, that bores me. Like, they do work. I'm not against synthetics in general. I'm against certain ingredients that I've done the research on that have an adverse effect on human health and environmental health. And to me, that's important to get that message out there. And it's hard to be a deliverer of the truth and a message that most people don't want to hear. And obviously there's big dollars tied up in personal care product industry, and it's hard to get that word out there. So, but it was an important part of my journey and my career to disseminate that information and to put it all in one easy to read Bible or resource.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I wrote a little blurb for it.
Thank you, you did. And I really appreciate that and your support, because you know a lot about the industry and how it works. So it's revised and expanded, so there's a lot more information. There's been a lot of changes in the industry. I mean, we've got MOCRA in the US, which was the modernisation of the Cosmetics Reform Act, which hadn't been updated since 1938. So that's good. That means that there's a few more barriers to entry as well. I mean, we're also playing in a field now or an industry where the barriers to entry have been very diminished because of social media, and there's so much out there. So as a consumer, you need to be very discerning and to understand what it is that's going, to understand about the industry and also what is in skincare products and what are they doing, why they're required, what are the most important ingredients for skin health and why do we need them. And I think, less is more, and I think we're going to see this as sustainability movement. We're moving into more different category now, which is an exciting new development of upcycling. So we're looking into upcycled ingredients.
Oh, cool.
Which
that's new.
Yes, it is new. So that's been a big focus for our
work?
brand. Well, you're basically taking a byproduct of manufacturing of maybe another industry and you're utilising that.
Nice.
So watch this space.
Okay. I mean, what are the most criminal things? I mean, I think I learnt so much. I learned so much at your book launch. Like, terrifying for me to hear was about the perfumes and the fact that they don't have to list any of the chemicals they use.
Yeah, so they're very sophisticated formulations that have a lot of ingredients in there that are not healthy.
Yeah. It's actually made me not want to use perfume at all. I spray it on my clothes. I don't put it on my skin now.
I think that's a really good place to start. I mean, people love that experience of smelling, that sensory experience. But for some people, they have the absolute adverse opposite effect, particularly if you have chemical sensitivities or allergies. So they're artificial smells and fragrances that are not healthy for humans. We cannot process them. They get stored in our bodies. Unfortunately, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry and a lot of advertising's tied up with it. So it's very hard to get that message out there. But if there was one thing that I could change would be regulation around that. And if I wasn't doing this business, I would be putting all my energy into helping people to understand and navigate the dangers and toxicities behind using fragrances, which are ubiquitous and found throughout pretty much everything that we use, including, washing powders, personal care products, cleaning products, candles, reeds, all those sorts of things. But it's not
the
a popular...
endocrine disruptors, the phthalates and...
The phthalates that are in there, there's, often diethyl phthalate is used as a carrier and it's also used as a fixative and then it's an adherent as well. So with phthalates, they're plasticizers, so they... Also a category called chemicals of emerging concern, or CECs. They have been implicated in endocrine disrupting chemicals, which means that they're interfering with our hormone receptors, which are found throughout our bodies. So then you're also most people are applying perfumes onto their lymph node, onto their lymph glands, and then we're also inhaling those very fine particles. So it's important to make sure that if you have to use a perfume or you want to use a perfume, then as you said, now you're just spraying it and then hopefully in an open space and then walking through it rather than applying it directly onto your body or your skin. And we do have this thing called olfactory fatigue, so it means that we may no longer smell that smell in the same potency once we get used to it. But so have you ever done any testing where you've gone and smelt different perfumes?
Oh yeah.
And then you have
you have the coffee beans.
You get olfactory fatigue. You need to just reset your olfactory
many times.
system. So it's a whole very complicated system which was designed to move us away from danger.
Right.
So our olfactory membranes and our olfactory system is there for a reason.
Yeah, right.
Just like the sunlight in our eyes, we are incredible multifaceted beings that are very much aligned with nature. We're not aligned with this artificial environment that we are now living in, with blue screens and artificial lights and artificial smells and fragrances, and all these things are making us sick, and they're also not helping us to make healthy choices about what we're watching, what we're consuming, what we're eating. Anything in a packet, I like to say, if it's in a packet, your body can't hack it. So, there's all those little things where everything is designed to make us unhealthy. And then you can move into the pharmaceutical industry, and that's a whole other monster. So they all feed into each other.
Absolutely.
So for me, it's about, and that whole journey, and my whole journey now is about disseminating the truth and just digging a little bit deeper. And I think off the back of what we've just seen and what we're seeing globally is it's important to stop and ask questions and not to accept everything at face value. Not to just accept what you're being fed. And if it doesn't feel right and it doesn't resonate, then it's probably a good reason for that. Just always trust that instinct and intuition. just drop down into it. It's going to be the thing that once you attune to that, and again, that's where the meditation practice comes in, because you are more aligned with your sense of self and you're more aligned with your being to make those choices and decisions that best support you and the environment.
That's really good advice. I think that's what, it's also the key to your mindset practices as well, because you're really big on mindset. Yeah, I completely agree. Why do you do what you do?
Because I love it. I do. I still have a passion for it. Otherwise, I wouldn't still be here. And for me, it's about creating something beautiful and making people feel good. Yeah. So beautiful products to make people feel beautiful is really the ethos of the brand. Yeah. That's what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is beautiful. What are your sacred six, your products, practices and protocols that make you look and feel your absolute best?
Yeah, so I think that what I went through with you before, so the meditation twice a day, non-negotiable, that to me is just...
That's key.
It's the foundation.
Yeah. Oh, you've really inspired me.
I'm just giving you the, come on,
I'm
going to be checking in on you.
Oh, okay. You can be my,
It is transformative. But as I said, it has to become a want rather than a need.
Yes, that's
because
the thing.
then it's not like I have to do this.
That's
It's like this is paramount to who I am. This is why I'm here. The most important thing that we can do is be a better human and raise our own vibrational energy. Everything else is a distraction.
You're right. Makes sense. I like the way you put that.
Everything else is a distraction.
I like the bit that it's like, that's why we're here, to be a better human. And it's like, well, that's the one thing that will make you a better human. Like, there's no denying that meditation is the absolute pinnacle of everything in terms of mental health and physical health, disease prevention, everything.
So why would you avoid doing that?
I don't know. Ego, I think, gets in the way.
Well, it's busyness.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, they say it's your ego, but it's basically, I have to do that. That's more important, but it's not.
You can carve out that time, and it's not about being selfish. It's about being selfless. It's about, without. It's like put the oxygen mask on first.
Yeah.
For you to be a better mum.
Exactly.
For you to be more present. For you to be really there for your children. It's like, and also in business, you're coming from a place of being really centered and that place of stillness and less distraction.
Absolutely.
So that is number one.
Number one? Yep.
Very important.
Yeah.
Sunlight. Number two.
Yeah. Not
to fear the sun, not to demonize the sun, to use that in a healthy way.
Skin?
Well, I do use an SPF, but it is I can't say too much about that either. Yes.
Okay.
That's
watch
been
this
a big project.
Oh.
It's taken a while because obviously
excited.
I had a lot of boxes to tick there.
It's hard doing a sunscreen.
Yes, but I'm determined. I'm a very determined person.
Oh, you are, I can tell.
Pretty excited about that. Early in the morning, I'll make sure I get sunlight on my skin, and then, I'm not out there in the solar sun is actually where you get the vitamin D from, though. So you need to get that at midday, but it's only for a short period of time.
Oh, so the vitamin D is not in the sun?
The best time to get it is the solar sun is in the middle of the day, but it's like a 15 to 20 minute window.
So have your lunch out in the sun, but protect your face, maybe.
Yeah, get some on your skin.
Yeah, I usually go and have sometimes I'll go and just...
Yeah, and it's only a 15...
Take my clothes off, but have a hat on.
15 to 20 minute window.
Yeah, okay. That's good.
There's a bit of a renegade guy called Jack Kruse, and he's done a lot of research into light, if you want to check him out.
How do you spell
Jack Kruse, Kruse.
Okay.
He's done a lot of research. He's a neurosurgeon, and he's out there.
Yeah.
But I just felt to mention him because he's doing some amazing work. He's not mainstream.
No.
But I'm not mainstream,
no.
obviously. Cleansing is, such a simple step that I'm still amazed so many people don't do it, or they don't spend the time or understand the importance of a good cleanser. So yes, always remove.
What's your favourite out of your cleansers?
I love mixing.
Yeah, that's right. You were telling me you do
blending.
pump of the hydrating.
I do a double cleanse in one, so I get the calming cleansing balm, and I mix that with a little bit of the hydrating cleansing lotion, and it is lush.
So beautiful.
I love that.
It smells.
So I love that combination. And then spending time massaging your face with the cleanser and really working that into the skin and properly removing that to then set up the foundation for the rest of your products. A good A, I love our new A because it's an A you can use all day, and also because it has the natural retinol in it. So it is a Cosmos approved A, which has also been another big, groundbreaking, first of its kind, I think, or one of the first. So that's a beautiful product that I love to use. And of course, vitamin C is also really good. And then Queen of the Night, I love her.
Yeah.
She's amazing with all her ceramides and peptides. And then making sure you get enough protein in your diet as you age is also...
Any tips? I find that so hard. I found out like how much I need to get, and I'm like, that's so hard.
You could have collagen in a shake, so that's one way you can get it into you. You need to have proper protein, not plant protein.
Yeah,
especially as you age. Yeah. And then resistance training.
And I do whey protein too now, which is kind of,
Yeah. So
resistance training,
resistance training, muscle strength training is also really important, as well as mobility. So they're sort of the main things. I know that's more than 6, but they're kind of the pillars for me.
Yeah.
And as I said before, the main thing that I'm focused on, it's important to eat well, because that is going to form the foundation and the building blocks of how you age.
So you're packet-free, clean, like what do you still eat meat?
Yeah, I didn't for a long time, but I do now. Since going through hormonal changes and menopause, I've incorporated
Are you on
a bit
HRT?
more. No, I've transitioned really well, really easily. I shouldn't say that because it's a different journey for everyone.
Yeah,
but again, my lifestyle is pretty clean and healthy, so I think that made a difference. And I haven't ever taken any hormones, even when I was a teenager and things like that. I've never really. I didn't take the pill. I didn't take anything like that. So I think maybe that makes a bit of a difference as well.
Okay.
I mean, I still have friends that are having a horrendous time with sweats, and definitely my sleeping was impacted. My hair is a lot thinner than what it used to be. I mean, it's still
amazing.
It's still growing.
It's incredible.
But it's not as thick as it used to be. It used to be a lot thicker. So I think we do need that, that extra bit of protein as we go through those changes in the aging process, just to help with keeping the collagen and the elastin and making sure that we're supporting and feeding and nurturing ourselves. Drinking lots of water, staying grounded, not sitting at your desk for hours at a time, making sure you get up. I use a wearable device that gives me
Aura?
I had the Whoop before, and now
I've just got the Whoop.
So either one of those is good.
Which one do you like better?
I think they're both good. I just don't want to get too obsessed. I really just do it to make sure I'm getting enough sleep.
Yes.
And I'm minimising my stress, and also moving regularly, just a reminder to go, okay, it's time to get up.
Does it vibrate and tell you?
No.
Because you can set them to do that, I think, now.
Yeah, I think there's a later version of it, but it's important not to get too obsessed by them.
I know. It's tracking, like this thing.
Tracking your data, because that can also become an obsession.
Like addiction,
but it's good just to sort of keep an eye on stress levels and how you're feeling and recovery, and particularly when you are active and there's a lot going on in your life and you've got to deal with a lot of stresses.
Yes, like you do.
So I think that's the main things.
Well, it was so wonderful. I wish we had all day.
Thanks.
It's been so lovely talking to you. So
you
thank
too.
you.
Thank you. It's great to catch up with you. That's what I'm doing.
Aww. So I'm just sitting here going through all the plans for the pool. We decided to go with Blue Haven Pools. We took a drive out to Landsvale to their showroom the other day and sat down with Ramonda, who is the daughter of the original founder. I think they've been in the business for like over 50 years or something. And she was lovely. We went through all my Pinterest boards and came up with a whole plan. So we decided to go with Blue Haven for a number of reasons. We checked out a bunch of different pool builders. I'll show you the site actually so you can see. So here's the area. It opens up from the kitchen and dining room. This is the deck that Damien built to replace the old deck, which you can see is looking a little run down. But the shape, it's actually quite a small, it's a plunge pool. So it's a 5 by 3 meters. We were initially going for a prefab pool to make things easier, but it was too hard to get it down the driveway or over the roof. And Blue Haven were able to do a custom concrete pool where they built it on site without blowing the budget. So when we went to Lansvale, we had a good look at all the pools on site. I've got magnesium pools and a swim jet. Here are my mood boards that I made. So we're going for a real Mediterranean vibe. We want sort of white walls, an arch seat. So the great thing about a custom concrete pool is you can really use the space that you've got. And with this beautiful design, and I'm so happy. And that was one of the reasons we went for a custom concrete pool with Blue Haven, because they're able to be very flexible in terms of whatever you can imagine. We've been looking at lots of different tiles. We want a really bright white limestone. So I've been on the phone to all the tiling places and driving all over Sydney to get samples, but we're getting there. We're getting closer, and hopefully work will start in the coming days. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Beautiful Inside. If you enjoyed this, the best thing you can do is share it with a friend, leave a review or give us a rating.